It's not a function of what happened. It's a function of how you chose to perceive what happened. Every one of us in this room, I'm sure, can relate to the concept of it was the best, worst thing that ever happened to me. When I say that, can you not think of a particular situation in your own life where you, when you were going through it, knew this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is so gosh darn difficult. And now sitting here, you can look back on that and call it the best, worst thing that happened because somehow you were able to pull something good from that experience, or if you weren't able to pull something good from the experience itself, you were able to pull something good out of yourself in the experience. That's why you can look back on that and say, it was the best, worst thing that ever happened to me. Sometimes in our approach to metaphysics, we take too much of what I call a kindergarten approach to it. And we think that it means that we have to look at everything that happens and say it's a good deal, that it's good. I don't think we need to. I don't think that's rational. There are things that happen to us, that happen to others, that by no stretch of the imagination in and of themselves are a good deal. When Azim Khamisa lost his son Tariq at the hands of a 16-year-old gang member, that was not a good deal. When Ken Druck, the founder of the Jenner Druck Foundation, lost his daughter Jenna, that was not a good deal. Neither one of those individuals who started organizations right here in San Diego that do a tremendous amount of social good today, neither one of those individuals would say that the good work that they're doing, that they would trade places and they want their kids back. That no matter how much good that organization had done, the loss of their kids wasn't a good deal. However, they could look at the fact that, all right, it happened. I can't change that it happened. I don't like that it happened. But I can pull something good from it. I'm not going to become bitter, or I'm not going to let myself stay in a state of bitterness. I'm going to become better. I'm going to pull something from that, whether it's an organization that can better other people. I'm going to find some good in it. It's the same story of one of my favorite characters in the Old Testament, Joseph. Joseph was one of 12 sons. He was sold into slavery by his brothers. Now stop and think about that for a moment. That's really dysfunctional. Sold into slavery by his brothers. He eventually found his way into Pharaoh's house, into Pharaoh's household, and eventually earned his way up the corporate ladder, if you will, in those days, and became second in command of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. There was a famine in all of Egypt that was killing countless Israelites. Through a far too complicated story to go into all of the details, but in summarizing what happened, is eventually his brothers, the very ones who sold him into slavery, that put him on the trajectory to eventually become second in command, only to Pharaoh. His brothers had to come to Pharaoh's house to beg for food. Joseph recognized them when they came, and he played some very amusing tricks on them, which is worth a read just in the Old Testament on those amusing tricks that he played. But eventually he let them know who he was. And he looked at them and said to them, referring to the fact that they sold him into slavery, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." He was doing this very thing. He wasn't calling the fact that his brother sold him into slavery a good deal, because it wasn't a good deal. But out of that not good deal, he knew that God had a different agenda, or another agenda. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. The good was I got placed in a place where I could make a difference, and I could eventually save the very family that at one point turned their back on me. It is this idea of perception. It is understanding the filters through which we look at life. Our filters sometimes come out of our history. Depending on how we were raised, we may have what's the word I'm looking for, a tendency to have a certain kind of filter. We may have a filter that is more negative and critical, or we might have a filter that's more positive, but we cannot blame it all or tie it all to our history, because ultimately we are in charge as adults of what filters we're going to operate under and the perceptions we're going to have of the life that we're living.